Hello everyone, my name is Voya and welcome to my deep guide. So here we are. This is the Boox Leaf, the latest 7-inch monochromatic e-ink reader from Boox, and let's do an in-depth review of this little device. So here is the Boox Leaf, the latest dedicated e-reader from Boox. This time it sports a 7-inch e-ink HD Carta screen. So if it's an HD Carta screen, that means that it should be a glass panel, but the cover lens feels plastic, so I'm not sure whatever it is, but it is an HD Carta screen, and traditionally they are glass panels. They provide better image quality, but they're also a little bit more fragile and a little bit heavier. The name itself, Leaf, should kind of talk about the whole point of the device, which is it's supposed to be ultra light, ultra portable, thin, and all that kind of stuff. We'll talk a little bit more about all of that, if it has been achieved or not. It's actually a very powerful device. It has an octa-core CPU inside, 2 GB of LPDDR4 RAM, and 32 GB of internal storage, non-expandable. No, we don't have a micro SD card, but we do have a USB-C OTG capable port, so you can expand storage and transfer storage that way. It runs on Android 10. It comes out of the box with the OS 3.1, but it's updatable to OS 3.2, the latest one. And no, it is not a note-taking capable device. This is only an e-reader, so no Wacom layer or pen capabilities of any kind. It costs as a bundle. They're offering like 2 different types of bundles with the magnetic case, which I do not have. I don't have either of the sleeves because I ordered it here from Norway and I didn't have the bundles. I think that the bundles are available only from the Boox store. And there you can find a bundle with the Leaf magnetic case for $286 US dollars, and Boox Leaf with the Leaf sleeve for $250. Now that is a fairly hefty price tag to actually have for a 7-inch all plastic affair Android 10 device that came out. So let's take a deeper look into all of these categories and see what's what and whether it's worth the price tag or not. So I mentioned in the unboxing and first impressions that, general outlines of the design and the build quality. Let's just get over the outlines of the device. So it's on the front, it's a clean affair. It's a flush screen, so no indentations, no buttons, no nothing on the front at all. You flip it to the back, there's absolutely nothing on the back. We just have a little bit of a bulge here, which is nice, kind of to hold it. And the surface is okay. It's not super slippery, so it can kind of hold on to your hands even if they are quite dry, as mine are, at a fairly steep angle, and then it starts kind of sliding. So that is an okay thing. On the side we have the power and data connector here, which is used for the flipbook cover if you buy that. On the other side we do not have anything at all. On the top we have a power button with an LED indicator, and on the bottom we have stereo speakers, USB-C, microphone, and surprisingly screws here, which hopefully offer the ability to actually service the device, such as easily exchange the battery. Now I'm just hypothesizing about that, but it's a nice thing to actually see that a device can be potentially serviceable. Design-wise, it's a complete Remarkable 2 ripoff. For those who haven't watched my unboxing and first impressions videos, yeah, I mean, come on, this is a Remarkable 2 attempt in an all plastic affair. And while many devices actually share a similar outline of a design of a wider side, that's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the exact same coloration of the metal here, which is not metal, but it is metal on the Remarkable. The exact same attempt of coloration of the outside screen to be same color of the screen itself, which is not the problem on my Nova Air. I love that. That's a thing that I absolutely love. But when you pair it with this kind of signature thing that it's exact same color, exact same thickness proportionally as the Remarkable 2, then you basically are simply ripping off the design, and that's not okay. I'm not okay with people ripping off other people's designs. Design-wise, also ergonomically, I have spent now several weeks with the device, and I gotta say that I don't like it. I really don't. My initial concerns were that I don't know how to hold this device. Yes, there is a wider side here, but it's not wide enough to actually hold it properly. So Kobo and Kindle, they do these things way, way, way better. And there's a reason why these sides are actually wider. Now, some users have said, and I also hypothesized, maybe when you actually have the flipbook cover, then it's actually a better thing because it adds to that width. And they said, yes, it does add to the width, but it also adds to the bulkiness and it adds to the weight, which defies the purpose of its name, which is Leaf. It's supposed to be ultra light, ultra portable. It should not depend on an add-on to make it actually ergonomically comfortable to use. And for a dedicated e-reader, that's one of the main things that it has to do. So that's one of the things that I really don't like. Now, it also has this kind of bucket design, which is fine. I don't mind the bucket design at all. And the build quality is great. There's no problems there. But as you can see, maybe, yeah, you can see it here. This bucket protrudes ever so slightly on all of the sides. So the whole front screen is basically slightly lower than the edge of this surrounding bucket. And for me at least, that edge was something that I was constantly feeling while I was using the device. In the bed, lying down, sitting down, the only time when I don't feel it is when I don't hold it. So then I can tap it and it's fine, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about a portable e-reader that you're supposed to hold. So I'm really not sure what was the thinking behind the ergonomics design or the ergonomic side of the design of this device, because it just doesn't make sense. There's only one aspect that actually worked for me, and that was to flip it into the landscape mode, and then I am able to hold it comfortably. I'm never able to hold it comfortably with one hand. I always have to kind of deal with something or another, but at least it's far more comfortable to do it in landscape mode. And here shines the decision that the Leaf has an accelerometer which allows for the auto rotation ability. So that's something that kind of worked for me, but it never worked. It never made sense to comfortably use it in a portrait mode. I couldn't really find a pose or a situation only in landscape mode, and in landscape mode it was actually fine. It was okay to hold on and it was okay to deal with. The materials themselves, it's an all plastic affair. I'm not sure about the screen. As I said, this definitely, the top is plasticky. I think it's a plastic thing, but because it's an HD Carta screen, normally HD Carta screens are glass panels. You know, they provide better quality, but they are glass panels. So maybe there's a glass panel inside and there's just a plastic on top. Maybe, I'm not sure. But everything else is plastic. That's because they were going for the ultra light, ultra portable, and all these kinds of things. And all right, I get it. That's what they have to do. But this is super cheap kind of plastic, and it would have been nice to actually have something metal. Very nice kind of setup as we have on the Nova Air. It just feels better. But then again, this is kind of more robust for the product, but then it's much worse for the environment. So, you know, you gotta weigh things down all the way depending on what are your priorities. However, that being said, if we're talking about all plastic design, which this is, and its predecessor, and this is like pre-predecessor, this is Poke 2, this is not even Poke 3. This was also no metal, and it had a glass panel. Yeah, nice glass that you can actually feel, and has a different type of plastic on the back, which is a little bit rubberized. And you can hear very kind of different scratchy plastic on the Boox Leaf, much less so on the Poke design. So very unpleasant, much less unpleasant. Overall, I really find it kind of strange that we have an evolution from a brilliant design and it ergonomically made so much sense because how it was actually done, and these edges, yes, it has the same bucket, but it's rounded. The edges are more rounded, and you can actually see that if you see this highlight on the edge. See how it actually glides along? You get the highlight when edges are smoothed out. You don't get that kind of a easy, nice highlight here on it, no matter how much I try, because the edges are ever so slightly sharper and the quality of plastic or the quality of the material is simply different. So ergonomically, for me, Poke 2, even though it's smaller, it wins in any kind of category. It was portrait or landscape. It was a far more pleasant device to use ergonomically than the Leaf is. So as far as the design and the build quality goes, there's nothing wrong with the build quality, but I don't like the materials that are used. I don't like the design, and I don't think that it's a good evolution, especially when compared to the Poke 2 and 3 devices. And apropos thickness or thinness, no, it is not such a thin device because it is pretty much exactly the same thickness as the Poke devices were, and seeing how it's a bigger device, it should have been thinner. So this is not something that I would characterize as a thin device. It doesn't feel like it. One thing that I would say is that at 173 grams when I weighed it, it is okay. The weight is fine. But then again, Poke 2 and Poke 3 are 145 grams, which is lighter, considerably lighter than the Leaf. And I don't get it. I really don't get it. It's this is a more portable and a lighter device. And you at that 1 inch of the screen really seems to be coming at a higher price than I would have expected. And let's not even talk about the price difference between these two, because Poke is a lot cheaper than this. And just in case somebody is interested to actually check out the size differences and how does the Leaf fit into the whole thing. So we have Nova Air at 7.8 inches on the far right, Leaf 7 inches in the middle, and we have the Poke 2 6 inches on the far left. And you can see how they actually stack up. As far as the design and build quality goes, for me the Nova Air would be the winner with the whole combination. And as far as the portability goes, I would always choose as just a dedicated reader. I prefer the Poke device way more. So I really don't understand where does the Leaf need to kind of fit. Maybe somewhere in between, but I'm not so sure that it's like such a needed thing. So I'm really uncertain of why it's a thing. Maybe I'm missing something obvious, but it doesn't kind of, for me at least, it doesn't resonate. Weight-wise as well, Leaf is heavier than the Poke device, but it's lighter than the Nova Air. And price-wise, Leaf is cheaper than the Nova Air, but it's more expensive than the Poke 2. So it fits perfectly in the middle, almost perfectly. But then again, you know, Nova Air has writing capabilities, much nicer design and all these kinds of things. So it's really starting to be a little bit hard to justify the rather high price tag of this device and the absence of Android 11, because it's at Android 10 and it doesn't seem like it's going to be updated. So let's check out the specifications of the device. So specifications, as I mentioned, it's a 7-inch HD Carta e-ink screen, monochromatic. It runs the resolution of 1680 by 1264, 300 ppi. Has only capacitive touch, so no Wacom, no stylus compatibility. It has the standard dual front light, so you have warm and cold front light, fully independently controllable. You can switch it off. It has a really nice range, I think 32 steps steps range. As far as the hardware configuration, as already mentioned in the general overview, octa-core, 2 GB of RAM, 32 GB of internal storage. It has Wi-Fi capability for both 2.4 and 5 GHz. It has a Bluetooth 5. It has a USB-C cable for charging, data communication, and OTG, mainly storage compatibility, but keyboard, for example, and other things can be supported by that. It has a microphone, it has a G sensor, which is a really cool thing, and it has stereo speakers, and it's equipped by a 2000 milliamp polymer-ion battery. The dimensions are 165.6 by 130.8 millimeters, and it is thick or thin at 5.95, or basically 6 millimeters thin or thick. And weight, they say around 170 grams. When I weighed it, it was 173 grams. Just the device only, not the none of the flipbook covers or anything like that included. I don't have those accessories, so I don't know what they weigh, but it's fairly certain they will add at least another 100 grams or 80 grams at the very least for the one with the flipping switches and things like that. Overall, fairly powerful device, but as again is at the price of $250 or $286, depending on which bundle you actually want to go for, it's actually rather pricey. So that's something to definitely keep in mind, especially when compared to the Boox Poke series, for example. It comes with the Android 10 out of the box, and no, it did not update to Android 11. So that's another negative thing that I don't like about the Leaf, because it's a device that came out in the latest lineup of devices, the Max Lumi 2, Note 5, Note Air 2, and now we have Leaf as well, and all three of these have Android 11, but Note Leaf doesn't. And by all likelihood, it's not going to be upgraded to Android 11. And if somebody is wondering, well, what's the big deal? Why the concern? Well, Android 11 basically means that you have all of the latest security updates, fixes, and all of the protocols in place. The apps themselves also follow certain different rules. It's optimized, it has better battery usage, it has better performance and things like that. And with the Android 10, it's still a good system, but for a device that came out now, basically for the season of 2022, for all intents and purposes, you get an Android 10 tablet, and that's not okay. That, especially, again, at that price point, that's not something that can be just overlooked. It's something that has to be mentioned. The battery performance of the Leaf was okay. It's basically what I would expect from a device like this. The way I do the reading test is I put a really big document into the device, and then I use the Neo Reader's auto page flip ability, and then I set it to page flip for an hour under certain conditions, and then I do a readout of the battery consumption, and that's pretty much it. In all of the tests, I have Wi-Fi on, Bluetooth off, and the Frontlight has a varying degree of intensity, and the three varying degrees are 0%, 50%, and 100%, both Frontlights working. So at 0%, Leaf was spending around, so this is like an estimate, around 1% per hour, which estimates a total of around 100 hours of reading time per charge, which is really, really good. With the Frontlight at 50%, Leaf was spending at around 3% of battery per hour, and that can actually vary between 2 and 3%. So this figure is somewhere around 40 to 33 hours per battery charge of reading with the Frontlight set at 50%. And when you crank up that Frontlight all the way to the maximum, we get the consumption of around 8% per 1 hour, which is around 12.5 hours. Now there's a margin of error here, of course, because the test is only 1 hour. So if the test was like 10 hours or something like that, then I would get a more precise number. So take these numbers as what they are. They are not super precise measurements, they are an estimation of what you can expect under realistic conditions and these Frontlight settings. So overall, okay performance from the Leaf. One of the things that struck me immediately when I started using the Boox Leaf is the quality of the image and the screen. And it's super crisp, really good contrast ratio, clarity is excellent, and it's just something that works properly. So because it's running the OS 3.2, it means that if you're on a normal type of refresh, that you get the super speed, super fast page flipping. But if you switch back to, no, it's over here. If you switch back to normal, then you get less ghosting, but you also get that color banding, which something that I've mentioned before, and of course slower kind of page refresh, but you get far more clarity and less ghosting. And this is an example of super uber tiny font and letters and really small details to see how they look like on this screen, and they are very crisp and look really good. It's a really comfortable screen also to use for an extended period of time, especially for reading, so that's something that I really do like. And yes, it is a smaller format, right? But the clarity is excellent. Also, because you have the Neo reader as a default reader on the Boox platform, that one has absolutely fantastic formatting capabilities. And when coupled with the auto rotation, so for example, I rotate like this and then it's like fairly small, but I can just go here and fit to width, and now suddenly it transforms the reader into something that's really nice. And you can just see that the clarity and usability of a document or any document like this, far beyond just ebooks, is one of the strong points of the Neo reader or any Boox platform, because they use that as the default reader. So coupled with the auto rotation, that's something that I really like, and this screen definitely shines, especially for reading, but it's equally good for images and all of these kinds of things. So a really good screen. Frontlight is, as I said, really huge range, so you can go to all the way to maximum, all the way to turning it off. Uniformity is excellent. The only thing that I do notice is this kind of a shadow on the side here. So that's something that I noticed in the beginning as well, but it doesn't really bother me at all because it's fairly consistent on the side, and it just looks almost like a curvature of a page. So it's not like a typical kind of a color bleed or something like that. It's actually fairly uniform. You just have that kind of drop off on the side. So that's something to definitely keep in mind, but it was not something that bothered me at all. You have the separate controls of the warm light and the cold light. You can link them together and adjust them together, or you can unlink them and make a combination any way that you prefer. What I especially liked was the ability to actually fine-tune it all the way down where you have it in fairly dark conditions, to get the screen to have the same tint as the frame, but also to retain a little bit of brightness in the case that you're suddenly in a super dark area. So that's something that I really like, and really cool thing to have, and it adds overall to the usability and readability of the screen and of the device itself. So excellent screen, excellent readability, excellent performance of the screen, and excellent front light on the Boox Leaf. The reflectivity of Leaf is not the best. So it's okay. It's definitely on the okay side of things, and it works kind of good. But when you actually compare it to some other devices, then it's not that great. So let me just turn it off so that it doesn't continually switch around. So you can see this light here, for example, and let's compare it to Nova Air, for example. And if I compare the two, you can see that they are, let's see here. There we go, you can have it at an angle. So they are similar, but way more diffuse and way less intensity on the Nova Air. So if I turn to a much harder light, or a harsher light. You can see again that difference between these two, and this one as well. You can clearly see the differences. So Nova Air, definitely a better performance as far as the screen reflectivity goes. When we compare the two with the Poke, for example, then the difference is basically even stronger, because Poke has a true AG glass on top, and that one really performs very nicely and really well. So while the screen is incredibly sharp, crisp and beautiful, no question about that, not nearly as bad as it is on the Lumi 2, but for a dedicated reader, and coming again from the fact that we had Poke 2 as our device before, and now we need to be kind of charmed, or we need to think, should we upgrade to Boox Leaf, or maybe stay on Poke 2, or maybe somebody wants to buy a Poke 3 as well, which is cheaper. You have to take into consideration the reflectivity of the device, and I don't like it. It's not bad, but it's definitely not good, and it's not nearly as good as the reflectivity of the screen was on the Poke devices. So that's something that kind of, again, is not balanced. This product is simply not balanced. You have a fantastic screen, you have ridiculous performance inside, but then again, it's packed in this really cheap type of housing that's not really comfortable to use. And then on top of a brilliant screen, you get a highly reflective and not equally good surface on top of it to kind of diminish the experience. So far, not really a well-balanced product. Reading experience on the Boox Leaf, largely due to the excellent clarity of the screen and the flexibility of the Neo Reader platform, is really good. So if you don't know all of the functionalities of the Neo Reader, then that's something that you should definitely look up. This is not going to be a guide to how to use Neo Reader, but yeah, you have a ton of options here. No, you don't have a split screen option, because that's something that is, I guess, too small for this. But you do have the ability to very easily, for example, if this is a smaller text for me. So let's say if I reset this to the default setting, and you get a document that it looks like this. On different platforms, you would be kind of stuck with this, and you would be able to do minimal amount of changes, especially when it's a PDF. If it's an EPUB, you simply reformat it, and that's that. But on PDFs, that's a bit of a problem. The true power of the Boox platform is basically here. So you can just go to Format, and I can choose to say, okay, fit the whole page, like this, and then it's better. But for me, what I actually prefer to do is fit the width, and then add a little bit of a margin, not that much, a little bit less, and let's see, maybe something like this is actually good. So this is fine, but it's still a little bit too small for my taste. And as I said, I didn't like the ergonomics of using the Leaf in a portrait mode. Now, because we have this auto rotation option, the preferred method and the preferred format that I was using is actually landscape. So if I adjust it like this, fit it to width, the really cool thing is that when you go to the next or previous page, it will slide down the page, basically just going through the page, and once you reach the end of the page, it will flip to the next page, allowing you to actually continue reading seamlessly. And then suddenly the small format simply becomes a convenience because of the functionality, because of the formatting functionality and flexibility of the Neo Reader. So if it didn't have that, then it wouldn't be something that's good, but because of the flexibility of the Neo Reader and the formatting capabilities, it is a really good experience, which was also true, equally true on the Poke. Again, I'm talking about that one because it is the one that's basically directly comparable to this one. So yeah, that being said, on the Leaf, my preferred method of use and reading was in landscape format. And when I use it like that, then it actually makes sense, and it's quite a pleasant experience, far more pleasant than when using it in a portrait mode. It is also very, very noteworthy to mention, again, regarding the Neo Reader, the capabilities that it has since later. So, for example, this is a PDF document that has been scanned. So it's just a scanned book, and it looks kind of weird. So even if I flip into the landscape mode, it's still extremely small, right? And you can see how there's like not a good fit for pages and things like that. And in this case, fitting to width wouldn't work. Well, that's not a problem because NeoReader has the navigation options. And when you go to the navigation options, I usually go to more. You can actually divide it into different sections. And then, for example, I can decide, hey, okay, so this I'm going to extend over to here. This I'm going to extend a little bit over here. And yeah, roughly we are around the middle. I'm making sure that all of the quadrants are fitting here. Now I can tell it to switch through different quads in which order. And I want it to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So I just need to swap to this mode here, where it reset again. Well, that's dumb, but still not a big deal. I can just reposition this a little bit. And once I'm done with this, then it actually keeps it for the entirety of the document. So now I can just press OK. And now, again, suddenly, something that was really, really difficult to use, so a scanned book, which was like all over the place scanned, I can just now very easily tap across and use normally. So let's say, there we go, preface, all of the things that actually work quite nicely. So extremely usable device and extremely powerful reader platform. So that's something that I really do like as far as the Neo Reader goes. And to top it all off, you also have the OCR capability, and people get really confused with the OCR. Not entirely sure, but the OCR has nothing to do with handwriting recognition. The OCR is exactly for this kind of a purpose because, for example, this document here, this page here, for example, is a scanned image. And as such, unless you do the OCR recognition, you can't have selectable words, right? Because it's just an image. But because I already did an OCR recognition on this one, it will allow me now to actually highlight the text, underline it, add annotations, translate them, or do whatever I may want to do with this. So that's what the OCR capability is for, and that's something that's a really, really useful thing to actually have. And there's a limitation on it that you can do because that's a service. Basically, you don't pay anything. So for free, you will have basically 5 per day, I think, single page or something like that. So it's not something that you can just take and OCR the entire document or something like that, but if you run into a page or two or a document that you should OCR in order to do something, you have that ability as well. As far as the user interface goes, it really depends when you are watching this, which version will be current or not. Because, for example, Leaf ships with the OS 3.1, which has a one type of user experience, but out of the box you will get an update to request to update 3.2, which changes that user experience quite considerably. Now, granted, some of the things of the OS 3.2 are good, and it introduces some really, really useful and cool features, but it also introduces some things that are really, really not that good. And so, for example, there's no back button here. When you update to update 3.2, you will no longer have what we had before, which is you swipe down and you have back, home, and multi-app control. So that one is actually gone and it's replaced by some other things, and they are supposed to work as gestures such as back, home, and multi-app control. Of course, not in the home, so that kind of works. So that is actually set up in the settings, and then you have gesture settings, and then you have, not in the gesture in the gesture settings somewhere. There we go. Multitask switcher, back home, and back, right? But the problem that I had was when I updated from 3.1 to 3.2, for some reason, this was at off. And then I was unable to go back because I do not have a back function. And if you go here, you don't have a back function either. Your only salvation is to not disable the navigation ball, in which case you can tap the navigation ball and then use the back button there. So that's something, but by default, I always disable navigation ball on all of the systems, especially on the smaller ones. You might not be doing that, but for those who are doing that kind of thing, that's definitely something to keep in mind. So make sure that your bottom gestures are enabled so that you can have the back functionality like that, or the home functionality like that. And if you don't have it and you get stuck, then make sure that you just simply swipe down from the right corner to enable your navigation ball, and by tapping on the navigation ball you will get some additional options to choose from. Generally speaking, Boox platform is a full-on Android platform, which means that it has a ton of functionalities. Yes, this is a Google Play enabled device. You have to do the Google Play enabling procedure. Also not going to be described here because it has been described in previous videos. Check out Max Lumi 2, for example, or Note Air 2. And once you enable it, then you have access to your normal Play Store, where you can install and use different apps that you may want. So you can install a Kindle reader, you can install Kobo reader, you can install whichever one you want. So that is something that's really good. In addition, you also have the Boox's App Store, which has slightly optimized apps and things like that you might also want to use, which is a thing to kind of keep in mind. Additionally, you have the option of manually optimizing each app to actually say what kind of displaying you want, what kind of DPI you want, what kind of screen refresh mode you want. So tons and tons of options, which is great. But what's not great is that all of those options increase the complexity of use, and it is a device that basically, not the device, but the Boox platform is a platform that has a very steep learning curve. And I know that they tried with the OS 3.2 to improve those things, but things are just still hidden, convoluted, and not really clear what they are, where they are. The most typical example for me is management of the library and how it works with the shelves, bookshelves, and sub-bookshelves and things like that. Naturally, what people will see normally is the scan mode here, and you might want to start organize things in bookshelves, but those bookshelves don't match your files that are in folders, which are in physical storage, and maybe that's what you wanted, and then you don't know how to do this, and basically all you want to do is switch your library to a directory mode, but you go to settings and you try to find that, and it's nowhere to be found, where it's actually hidden, where you have to tap on this icon here to switch to directory mode. And it's been like that for years now. And basically my preferred method is using the directory mode, because then I just browse through the directories on my device, and that makes more sense for me. You also have options to go through the last modes and things like that, and there's tons of options for sure, but there's also tons of issues, because for example, if I am in a directory mode, the settings options are gone. So I don't have library settings options. I can't access them. And why would I need them? Well, if I want to adjust options, which are the if I want to scan for book covers, if I want to do these things, and you can actually filter and sort in the scan mode, you can't really filter and sort in here, but you can look up like this, you can list them like this. So it's inconsistent and it is confusing, so that's something that's definitely not a strong point of a Boox device. And when we're talking about a dedicated e-reader, This is a device that's supposed to be able to, you just pick it up and you continue where you left off. And that's something that's a much stronger point on traditional e-readers such as Kindle and Kobo and Pocketbook. They are far more capable to be a device that you just pick up and go from where you've been, because if you shut it down, then you have to go to the reader mode, then you have to either find the document or you go to the recent ones and then you just tap on the ones that the last ones that you actually opened and access. So it's not a big deal, but once you have like one inconvenience, then another small inconvenience, then another small inconvenience, it kind of amounts to how one approaches this device. And I think that the bottom line is that I find that the Kindle and Kobo devices are more approachable and easier to use as dedicated, simple, on-the-go readers than the Boox devices like Poke2 or the Leaf are. On the other hand, Kindle and Kobo and Pocketbook devices, none of them can even come close to the versatility and the power that the Boox devices actually have as e-readers themselves, because you can have Comixology, you can have any app that you want, you can have almost any format that you want, you can do so many things with these things, marking up the documents, exporting, all of these kinds of things, extremely powerful and extremely versatile, but at the expense of a rather steep learning curve. And finally, as mentioned, Leaf does not have a expandable micro SD storage capability, but it does come with 32 gigabytes of internal storage. If that's not enough for you, you have the USB OTG capability for extended storage. So you could add an SD card reader if you wanted to, or you can just simply use it to transfer your latest collections and back up your things that way, etc., etc. In addition, you can also use Bluetooth keyboards with this device. You can use hardware keyboards if you plug them via the USB OTG. You can also do screen recording, you can do screen share because it's an Android device. So you can, I believe that you can also record voice. Normally you can. So this is something that, yep, the recorder is there. So you can record voice, you can do plenty of other things. So again, tons and tons of things that other devices can't. And let's not forget, this is an Android device. If you wanted to, you could install an Audible app, and then because it has speakers and Bluetooth capability, it can actually read it out loud to you through speakers or through headphones, regardless of what you want. So again, extreme flexibility as far as that goes. But then again, doesn't have an IPX certification standard, so it's not a waterproof device or a splash-proof device, which is something that most of the other devices in this category for 2022 and 2021 as dedicated readers, it's slowly becoming a standard. So this is something that I believe that Leaf should have had to be even more competitive with the Kobos and Kindles of the scene today. Alright, so now it's time to get a conclusion or draw a conclusion about the Leaf from Boox. So what's it like? Let's start with the cons first. My first con is going to be that it is a basically shameless ripoff of the Remarkable 2 design. There is absolutely zero reason to make it look so much alike, like a device, a very popular device that already exists. My second con would be the ergonomics and the design itself. The design, I don't mind it. It's not really my cup of tea, the way it actually works with these materials and how it's done, but it's, you know, built okay and everything works fine. But my main problem with the design is the ergonomy of things, and that is the problem that this wider side is not wide enough, and the protruding bucket from the front panel, as I've showed before, really doesn't kind of make it work for the portrait mode, and the only mode that I made Leaf actually work and be somewhat comfortable was in the landscape mode. So that's something that you definitely kind of have to keep in mind. Also take into consideration, if you say like, yeah, but then you use the flipbook cover and then you have the added width, Yes, you have the added width, but you have added thickness, and you have added weight, and you have added expense. So I'm just reviewing the device itself, the overall ecosystem and the accessories. I don't have that accessory, so I can't review it, but I know for a fact that it will add thickness and it will add weight to the device, which is detrimental to an overall experience. And also, there are other devices out there that do not require you to actually use an accessory, and they by themselves actually provide for a very, very lovely ergonomic wise reading experience, such as Libra H2O, Libra 2, and Sage is a wonderful ergonomics experience, but it has that dreaded battery kind of issue. But yeah, the devices can, especially readers, they have to be ergonomically good to use and comfortable to use on their own. They shouldn't require an accessory to make it ergonomically pleasant to use. Another con for the Leaf would be that it comes with an Android 10. This is a brand new device that has been launched only a couple of months ago, at the same time when the rest of the devices were launched that are sporting Android 11, yet this one is sporting Android 10, and there isn't an indication whether or not it's going to be updated to Android 11. If past is any indication, then the inclination I have to say is that no, it most likely will not receive an Android 11 update. Another standard con also has to be that while the overall Android experience and having a full-on Android, even though it's Android 10, but you have a full-on Android and Google Play and all of these things, like really tremendous amount of power in this small package. So that's definitely a pro. But as usual with Boox devices, that user interface, especially now with the 3.2 that has been added, where they tried to actually fix some things, but some things were fixed, some things were not, but the main problem hasn't really been addressed, which is it hasn't been simplified. We don't have tooltips. There are illogical places where menus and options are, and it's a very, very steep learning curve. Now, if you were talking about the e-Note device, such as Note 5, Note Air, or Max, for example, Max Lumi, then a steep learning curve can be okay because it's a much more robust device and it's going to be used for different purposes. But Leaf is a dedicated e-reader. It can't do note-taking at all, and as such, it should be a pick-up and use kind of a device, like a Kindle or Kobo or Pocketbook are. And for all intents and purposes, it's not really that. You still have a little bit of a learning curve, and there's also illogical choices with the library itself. So for an e-reader, what's the most important? What's the second most important thing? The first most important thing is readability in the screen, right? Well, Leaf does that great, but the second most important thing is the ability to easily load, manage, organize, and deal with your library of books, because that's what you want to use it for. And that's where the problem is with the overall Boox platform. The complexity of that platform is it requires a learning curve, even for something as simple as management of library, right? So that's definitely going to be a con for, or something for people to be aware of when looking into the Leaf. The reflectivity of the screen surface. Why is it a con? Well, when you compare it to Kobo Sage, when you compare it to Kobo Libra 2, when you compare it to even Poke series, Poke 2 and Poke 3, the reflectivity on Leaf is worse, which means that you have stronger reflections and you have less diffusion of these reflections. And again, for an e-reader, dedicated e-reader, that is a very important consideration to take into account. And another con for Leaf as well, because it is a Boox device and the general issue has not been addressed or resolved, which is the use of Android, or most importantly, Linux kernel, because that's an open source and it's under open source license. That means that Boox are obligated to disclose whether or not they have modified the Linux kernel in any way. If they have modified the Linux kernel, then those modifications, the source code for those modifications under the open source license, it has to be made available to those individuals or parties who actually ask to have access to these. Boox is not obligated to make them publicly available, like on a GitHub. That's a traditional thing to do, but they're not obligated to that. But what what they are obligated to do is to disclose the status of the Linux kernel on their devices, whether or not it has been modified, and if it has, they need to provide the source code of those modifications to the parties that may request it. The final con for me, as far as the Leaf goes, would be the price itself. So depending on which package you order, if you're ordering it from Boox, you would pay $250 for a folio, so dash device and a folio. That's not the one with the buttons. And if you want the cover with the buttons, then that have functionalities to page flip and things customizable, they can customize it, then it costs $286 US. And that's like a special offer with the discount. I bought mine from a Norwegian distributor who distributes devices here in Norway, so that I don't have to pay additional shipping and I don't have to pay the tax, import tax, or anything like that. And what this device costed me to actually purchase it was a little over $300. Just the device, not the package, right? So no folio, no magnetic case or anything like that. And that is a very, very high price to actually pay for this. Now, depending on availability, right now, if you order from Boox and if you are in the EU and you order it, then I believe that you shouldn't pay taxes, but read through the whole thing. It should be a case that you don't pay taxes because it's included, but if you order from Hong Kong or if you're from US and you order from an EU store or a Hong Kong store, then you will have import taxes as well normally because you're importing an item into your country. So I personally, in my real world case scenario, am looking at a device that's a 7-inch e-ink reader that costed a little over $300 for just the device. Not a bundle, just a device. And that is a very, very high price to pay for what the Leaf actually delivers and what it is. And now for the positives of the Leaf. Number one positive, as far as I'm concerned, has to be the clarity and the quality of the screen. So the image itself, despite the reflectivity of the screen surface, that's a con as we talked, but the image itself, the screen itself, the quality is really, really good. It's exceptionally clear, sharp, contrast is really, really good. So it's a very, very pleasant experience to use it like that. The second thing that I really do like about it is that the Leaf has an accelerometer, and given the fact that I'm not too keen about the ergonomics of using this device in a portrait mode, I found myself flipping it over to landscape very, very often, and actually mostly using it in a landscape mode, and having the auto rotation feature because of that accelerometer was also something that helped a lot. Another positive thing has to be the Neo reader, because it is a very, very capable and extremely powerful reader, especially for PDF documents. For EPUBs, depending on which kind of documents you have and what you actually do with the documents, it can do some weird things, but usually you're able to reset the device and reformat the document into something normal. But for PDFs, that's where the Neo Reader actually excels, and when combined with the accelerometer and everything, then you are basically, you can find whatever the document might have been, you're able to find a good way to format it to actually kind of use it like on the format portrait, landscape, whatever it may be that you want it. So it's a very, very real world usable reader, despite the small size. Because of the formatting capabilities of the Neo Reader, it's extremely usable. I guess one of the positives should also be the existence of that Leaf magnetic case, which has the buttons, so that you can expand the functionality of Leaf should you choose to do so with the page forward, page back, or home and back. You can customize the functionality of those buttons. So it's a nice thing that it exists, but it exists at a cost, and it exists at a financial cost, thickness cost, and a weight cost. So not much of a pro, but it's a good thing that it exists as an option. So that's why I put it in this category. And another pro is, of course, the Android environment, because it has a full-on Google Play Store, which means that you can download a Kindle app, you can download Comixology, you can download and install Kobo Reader, Pocketbook Reader, you can download the Audible and listen to the books on the Audible because it has a Bluetooth, and it has all of the advanced screen sharing features, screen recording, like tons and tons of features, because it is, underneath it all, this is an Android tablet. So it has most of the functionalities that you will find on an Android 10 tablet. And that is definitely a pro, but you really do have to take into consideration the con of this, which is the learning curve, which is rather steep. So yes, you have all of these features, and that's a huge pro when you compare it to any of the competitors out there of dedicated readers. Like by far the most versatile and functional platform, but it does come at the high learning curve cost. All right, so how to summarize the Boox Leaf? This is not a device for me, if I'm honest, and I'm going to try and explain why. First of all, the main reason for me are the ergonomics. They just didn't work. Second of all, whenever I look at it, I am reminded that this is a ripoff of a really blatant ripoff of the Remarkable 2 designs. That's something that I don't like. I don't like that feeling of having a device that's basically stealing someone else's work. That's something, maybe that's a personal thing, so okay, but it is how it is for me. I'm telling you my opinion on this. However, objectively, my biggest issue and why this isn't a device for me is this. And that's my trusty old Poke 2, which I've had now for over 2 years, and it's working brilliantly. Some users say that they had problems with the battery. Never had a battery problem with this one. Never hiccuped up, nothing. It just chugs along and works and works and works and works. And the main problem is this: Poke 3, or Poke 2 in this case, doesn't matter. They're pretty much identical things. They have the exact same functionalities as the Leaf, except for the accelerometer thing, right? So all of the power of the Android, same cons as well, same learning curve, but for all intents and purposes, they have the same functionality and same power. This one has an accelerometer, great, but this one, far more portable, far easier to handle, way better ergonomically to handle, portrait or landscape, it really doesn't matter. It's built better, uses better quality materials, has a full-on AG glass on top, which has infinitely better reflectivity properties than the Leaf. And ultimately, for me at least, it just, as a kind of a pocket reader, because of the Nero reader's capabilities of formatting the documents any way you want, especially using the landscape format, that makes the 6-inch format, which is rather small, something that you have to kind of keep in mind, it makes it incredibly usable. So the argument for me, which is the whole point, I guess, the argument of Leaf is it has an extra inch of the screen, and yeah, the clarity of the screen is great, but so is the clarity of the screen on the Poke 2 and Poke 3. So all you have left is basically a slightly larger screen, which definitely, yeah, it is that. But Poke devices are lighter, Poke devices are smaller, Poke devices are cheaper, and they bring out almost all of the things to the table that actually Leaf does, and do quite a few very important things actually better than the Leaf. And I don't know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a Poke 2 owner, and if I'm considering to actually upgrade to the next best thing, which is the new edition, which should be the Leaf, that's a definite no-go for me. So even if I was to buy a new e-reader, I would actually go rather for the Poke 3 than for the Leaf. Again, because of the better true AG glass surface, better reflectivity, lighter, more portable, better quality of materials, and same functionality essentially, except for the auto rotation feature, which granted is really cool, but then again, all of the other things that I get for this, then it's a no-brainer for me. So that leaves the other category, which is I really want the 7 inches. Well, if you do want 7 inches, then yes, then this certainly works, but it does have some issues that you really need to be aware of. So is it a bad device? No, not at all. Is it a perfect device? Nope, not at all. So it's an okay device. It has some cons, it has some pros, but my main question is, does it deliver what it should for the high price that it asks for, which is, let's be very generous and say that it's $250, but it's effectively going to be more? My answer is actually no, because it doesn't feel like a $250 device, and it has some cons that actually shouldn't be present on a $250 device. If it were cheaper, then it would be a no-brainer and it would make a lot of sense, but it isn't. So that's the conclusion for the leaf, as far as I'm concerned at least. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please like and subscribe and ding the notification bell down below to get notified when the new videos on My Deep Guide come out. Also, remember to check out in the links down below the My Daily Organizer, which is an organizer that I made. It's now available, well, it's been available for 2022 for a while now, but it's yearly, monthly, quarterly, weekly, daily organizer with lots of pages, and it's been optimized for e-devices, so e-note-taking devices, and it provides for a way for you to organize your obligations, work obligations, day obligations, or any kind of thing that you may have. It's been helping a lot of people, which is something that I'm incredibly grateful for, and it might be something that suits you or not. So in order to actually decide if this is a product for you or not, just check out the links down below. There's a playlist, lots of videos, check out a few to see what's it about and see for yourself. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video. Bye.